On Great Escapes, we're going to travel the wilderness on the hunt for unique architectural design.
I'm Colin McAllister.
And I'm Justin Ryan.
We're designers and have travelled the globe renovating houses and adding our own unique flair to other people's homes.
Now, we love the great outdoors and the idea of embracing the wilderness into your home. And in fact, just how far people will go to achieve precisely that.
Building an escape in the woods presents magnificent opportunities for individual design, but also unique challenges to work in harmony with the surroundings.
Add to that an extreme climate, from blistering hot summers to teeth-chattering winters, and these escapes must combine splendour with functionality.
We're going to explore properties that take that challenge head-on as we investigate homes that celebrate the landscape and work with the environment in interesting and distinctive ways.
Now, when you're trying to escape the city, there is nothing like jumping on a boat to make you feel like you are truly getting away from it all.
And for some people, a boat is the only way to reach their great escape.
On this episode, we're looking at the trials and tribulations of building on waterlocked properties. We'll meet one architect whose remote water access cabin blends seamlessly into the landscape.
I think it's fantastic that we're standing here and we actually can't really see your property.
It was important to me to be really quiet, for the landscape to dominate and for the building to recede into it.
Another who set out to build an off-grid island escape with a bold yet breezy feel.
Oh, wow, it's enormous.
Everything is challenging about a water access place.
Yeah.
Every single piece has to come by hand at some point.
And lastly, a secluded property that prioritises letting the outdoors in, using the forest as its hallways.
Come on, look at this place. Come on.
Okay, question. What do you do when your current cabin is almost falling down, but you're a highly respected architect? And the piece of land you're building on can only be accessed by water.
Well, you use all your experience to create a unique escape that's perfectly adapted to the area.
And in fact, so well situated that you can barely even spot it.
Multi-award-winning architect Ian MacDonald has been vacationing at his family cabin for over 20 years.
But when it came time to replace it with a new build, Ian only had a short window for building.
Harsh winter conditions combined with water access properties make construction extremely difficult in these parts.
Ian had to hire a helicopter to get materials to the building site quickly and efficiently in order to get the house built before winter hit.
Now, Ian's home sits nestled in nature. Making the building secondary to the landscape has a rich pedigree in modern architecture.
The Arizona home of influential architect Frank Lloyd Wright was designed to blend into the desert landscape upon which it was built. Hey, Ian, how you doing?
Good. Nice to see you. How are you?
Good.
What an incredible journey.
Yeah.
Beautiful, but it's not exactly easy to get here, is it?
No. There are friends we have who say, why would you want a place so far away? You have to put everything in the boat and then unload the boat and take it up to the cabin. But for me, it's the transition away from the city. It's going across a body of water. Sometimes that takes a long time if it's rough, if there's stormy weather, and it's a good transition. It washes the city off. And by the time you're here, you're in another place.
But it's long and it's a bit difficult, so how can you build a house out here?
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required.
Well, it takes a lot of planning, and you have to be organized and bring your materials in, and you bring the guys in who are building it, and it's different.
How do you get everything here?
Well, how you get everything here is by boat.
Okay.
It comes on a big barge,
All right.
and there's a cost component to it. You have to be careful. You have to be well organized, because if you forget one element, you have to go all the way back to do it. Once you get it here, that's the first step, but then you've got to get it up to the top of the hill. And getting people to show up here, it's a short building season. The weather gets up in the fall, and it's windy and wavy, and it's harder to get here.
I think it's fantastic that we're standing here and we actually can't really see your property. You know, it gives you that wonderful sense of harmony.
There's visibility from the water. It was important to me to be really quiet, for the landscape to dominate and for the building to recede into it.
All I can see is the very vaguest whisper of it.
Yeah, it's up the hill behind the trees, but why don't we go take a look at it?
I'd love to.
Oh, no, this is fantastic, Ian. Well, it's a truly spectacular space. What are we looking at in terms of square footage?
The interior space is 1,400 feet. It's not very big, but it feels big.
Okay, and you've got, what, 3 bedrooms here?
Yep, 3 bedrooms.
Amazing. I really like the fact that you've been so clever with the space, and rather than just have a corridor connecting the rear of your property to the front, you've turned that corridor into a really big working kitchen.
The real effort was to minimize the footprint of the building and keep it as small as we could, so many things have double uses.
Everything's quite minimalist in here. You know, even the window dressings are minimalist.
Yeah, this is a very warm site in the dog days of summer when there's little wind, and so we've got a number of things we've done, strategies to make it cooler. One of them is blinds that are deployed on the outside. These things drop down on the outside and stop over 90% of the radiant energy from getting into the house. So it keeps it from getting hot in the morning. There's an irrigated green roof on top, which keeps it cool during the day.
It's one of these great properties where you just can't help but be connected to the great outdoors. Like, you're forced to engage with the surroundings.
Yeah, yeah. We try to break down boundaries between inside and out. And so in this case, the windowsill drops below the countertop, so you can't see the point of its conclusion. It makes it seem more open. Right. It's plenty open anyway, but you're basically standing here in the garden.
Which is brilliant.
Which is nice.
I think that it's really important that buildings really acknowledge where they're located. And the better that you respond to this physical found condition, the more your building has a chance of actually feeling like it's really meshed with the landscape.
Oh, no, this is fantastic, Ian. Just amazing. The volume here isn't actually enormous, but I feel like I'm standing in a really big space because I'm looking right out with so few obstructions to that incredible waterway.
Come on. You know, there are panoramas, and then there are panoramas with a capital P, and this is as widescreen as it gets.
Yeah. This whole space converts from an interior room that's heatable to a screened-in porch, which is really great. It connects you to the landscape.
My favourite thing in here, this wonderful concrete elevation. What's the story with this? I mean, clearly it's housing a fireplace, but what is it and how does it work?
Well, that's the hearth. That's the fireplace for the cabin. It's solid concrete. It's also
solid? What does that weigh?
There's about 8 tons of concrete in there.
8 tons?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's
wow.
a big, heavy element, so it provides thermal mass. There are 2 wood stoves throwing heat into it, and it warms up during the day. The fires can go out, and that's giving heat back to the cabin for 24 hours or so after that. So it evens out the cycle of, you know, warm, cold, and makes it easier to heat.
A job very well done.
Thank you.
I think this is a total dream property.
Ian has done what can only be described as a remarkable job with this. It's a clever observation of what will happen if you plan every square inch perfectly. It's blended and blending into the scenery so perfectly that it whispers rather than screams designer.
So to meet an architect who's obviously created his own home, it should be that to the power of 10. This is Ian's DNA. It has his signature on every single piece of wood. It is his wonderfully calm personality personified in a building.
Now, growing up, architect Charles Ginn spent his summers holidaying in an area not far from where we're going today.
His dream was to build his own escape, so he set up to create his ultimate oasis away from the city, an entirely self-sufficient structure.
But with a modern, minimalist aesthetic that successfully brings the outdoors in.
Charles and Robin's escape is a modern structural gem. Industrial touches like massive windows exposing timber beams give a nod to the high-tech architectural style of the 1970s and 80s.
High-tech architecture transformed industrial details such as pipes and ductwork into celebrated design features. Entire walls of glass with minimal metalwork are a hallmark of the style. Hey, guys.
Hey.
That was a choppy run-in, I'll tell you.
Great to meet you, and that is quite an approach to this house that looks positively magnificent.
It can be a wild ride.
Yeah, indeed, but then it's worth it because you see this incredible house and your incredible rock.
Can we show you around?
Would love it.
Yeah, we'd love to, please.
Okay.
Lead the way.
Oh, wow. Oh, my word, it's amazing. Blimey, it's enormous.
It's huge. First thing you see when you walk in here is everything. So how do you go about creating a property like this on a piece of ground like this?
We saw the property for the very first time in December, covered in ice and snow, took a leap of faith and decided to buy it. And for the first 2 or 3 seasons we were here, we had a dock, we had a canoe, and we had a tent.
And you lived there?
And we just camped.
We did.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we realized the best spot to be during the day was up here. There was an amazing natural depression. We thought that's where the main entry will be. So the cottage spans over, you enter under the cottage, and the bedrooms are underneath.
Wow.
So
the actual rock surface really dictated the shape of this property.
Yeah.
As you view the property from the water, you see it rising from left to right. It works precisely with the elevation of the rock. Any landscape you come to, you are looking for the elements that make a good domestic space. Liabilities can be your best friends because they tell you what you have to do. That's what makes the building go from building to architecture. It really does give you something profound.
You're on a glass bridge from the land to the air.
Wow, because it feels like a lookout, because you get up here and the first thing you see is the fact that we're actually almost in the canopy of the trees. We're at the treetops. And then I love the fact that you can actually look in every single direction and see something.
It's all solar run, too.
Right.
How easy is it to live a life essentially off the grid?
Remarkably easy. And quite frankly, the hydro up here isn't super reliable. So a storm comes in, downs the lines, and some of our neighbors can lose power for 2 or 3 days. And that doesn't happen
with
to
your
us.
microwave and your irons and your hair dryers and all
Exactly.
your devices.
We're good.
Yeah, you're good. How many square feet altogether do you have?
So we've got about 2,000 square feet of living space and about 2,000 square feet of windows.
Oh, fabulous.
Yeah.
These are really impressive windows.
It's just the amazing size of the glass. They're 6 feet by 7 feet.
So 2,000 glorious feet indoors. What do you have outside?
Let's show you.
Okay.
Guys, you know, it's challenging weather up here. It's July, and it's kind of blowing a little mini storm. So it must have been hugely challenging to build something like this on land like this.
Everything is challenging about a water access place.
Yeah.
Every single piece has to come by hand at some point.
For sure.
You have to be organized in advance.
You don't want to be building as much on site, so you want to prefab as much as you can. The wood was all pre-drilled, connections ready, so that when we got on site, you just put it all together like a big mechano set.
Can you give me some of the big challenges? Let me know some of the things that might have been issues that you've had to contend with.
Well, one of the big challenges was getting concrete out here. And concrete has to come on a barge, and it had to go on a 3-hour barge trip. So they told us, by the time you get here, you only have an hour to spare, and then the concrete would be hardening. So it was a mad dash, and then it had to get pumped fast. So that was super challenging.
Right, so if you miss that hour, then you're screwed.
Yeah, and you got 2 concrete trucks sitting on a barge. No one wants to lose a concrete barge.
No, certainly don't. Yeah. That's not in your economic plan.
Exactly. I think your plans would be sunk,
Yeah.
literally.
Of course.
But getting all the materials here, everything had to be hauled up by hand. We had a little mini mobile crane. And we actually had people come in and lived here for a week, putting on all these windows.
Right.
And they were cooking chili all day long on a hot fire.
What a memory. What an
Just to stay
incredible
warm.
memory. How important was it for you to build a home that would in many ways merge into the environment?
We wanted things like sustainability, and we have solar power, we're off-grid, and we had this unique septic system that uses peat moss, and it like creates this swamp, a bog, and cleans everything.
Oh, that sounds a bit icky.
We won't take you there.
No, let's not look at that.
It doesn't have to be pumped
It doesn't
out or
have to be
anything.
pumped, and it should be good for 20 or 30 years.
What makes this so special to you guys?
It's a refuge, a place of quiet and peacefulness.
Boy, did you ever get it right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So it's bold and it's breezy, but self-sufficiency actually can be sleek, sexy, and sophisticated.
It's a completely brilliant home. I love its architectural mix of stone, glass, and wood. And oftentimes, when you look at that big mix of slightly industrial with bags of metal, it can be a little austere. But that house is the opposite of that. For all its modernity, it's a really comfortable place to retreat. I could live in there.
Of course, the burning question, Justin, is are you organised enough to have a water access only property?
Well, for many people, that mightn't be the ideal, but for Robin and for Charles, it's absolutely perfect.
You know, it can be a difficult journey. You know, this property is waterlocked, but I think it's totally worth it. After years of visiting their friend's island property, architect couple Brigitte Shim and Howard Sutcliffe decided to build their own remote escape.
And they quickly learned that they'd have to come up with some really creative solutions to deal with some of the issues that living on an island can present.
Bridget's Island Camp has strong parallels with the Farnsworth House, a masterpiece of modern architecture. This one-room weekend retreat was built by Ludwig Mies van der Rohe in 1951.
He believed the human connection with nature was essential and should be at the very forefront of design, much like Bridget and Howard's Island Escape. Hello, Bridget.
Hello, how are you?
We're good, thank you.
Good.
You know what? Better for seeing you and this incredible cabin, which I'm going to tell you right now is unlike anything I've seen before.
Very special place. We're very lucky to be here.
Most cabins you approach from the lakeside, but here, you know, you're encouraged to go through the forest first.
The boardwalk is a narrow footprint, so in a way it allows nature to be all around you.
It's almost like you've created this wonderful secret. The elevation and the view is heart-stopping.
It's very spiritual, and the landscape is always changing. It's a big sky, and it's doing something different every minute, and you just get to enjoy it all the time.
How long did it take to build this amazing structure?
I would say about 2 construction seasons, because it's a short time period, and we actually worked in the city with a group of fabricators that built a lot of this in the winter in a controlled shop, and then everything had to get shipped up in pieces.
So almost like an academic take on prefabrication.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you brought it up component part by component part, then assembled the puzzle.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that, in a way, redefining what most people think of as prefab in a different way to deal with a remote island, transportation issues. We couldn't use any heavy equipment, no cranes or anything. So everything had to be light enough for 2 to 3 people to carry over an uneven terrain. First, we built the main cabin, then we built the wash house, and then the boardwalk, and then the guest cabin. And so in a way, they're all pieces that form this bigger grouping that we call a camp. The idea is that you're always walking between them and experiencing nature. And then we also wanted no maintenance. And so much of these materials weather, they age, and they develop a wonderful patina, and hopefully you don't have to do a lot.
So the home's improving with every season that passes and every year that endures.
All buildings engage and interact with nature. And in this landscape, I think you don't want to be kind of maintaining your buildings. You actually just want to be enjoying the landscape.
So you've designed this incredible property with your husband, Howard, also an architect. And I have to say, first impressions, it's remarkable. But I want to go back to some of the simple first points of planning. How did you attach this building to the bedrock?
So typically, most people would pour a concrete footing that would be anchored to this amazing billion-year-old rock.
Geology at its absolute finest.
Unbelievable. So we actually drill into the rock to anchor a grid of screw jacks, and they can be leveled, and that creates the superstructure that everything else is built on.
You could anchor screw jacks in with a couple of bolts, I imagine, and they'd be secure, and you'd just be touching the rock. So the rock gets to run continuously through, so the building is distinguished from the landscape. The landscape is continuous. You're not interfering with it or cutting into the rock in any way.
It was really just a kind of reverence and respect for the landscape that we're in.
I'd love to have a look inside.
Please, come on in.
Oh,
yes,
thank
let's
you.
go.
Come on.
Welcome. This is our wooden tent.
Come on, Bridget. Look at this place. Come on. I'm going to say that again. Come on. This is totally off the charts. It's unlike anything I've ever seen.
So this is about 1,100 square feet. There's 1 bedroom. There's also a guest cabin, a wash house. So they're all separate buildings.
This is just incredible. The light, the shape. This is brilliant.
It's actually just trying to respond in a very direct way to the physical location that we're in.
You look everywhere, north, south, east, and west, and there's something going on.
On one hand, you see the green of the forest, and on this side, you actually see the blue of the water, and that you're actually experiencing both with natural light coming right down in the middle. It's meant to really allow you to feel the elements, the smells, the sounds, the view all together.
Yeah.
And not to be hermetically sealed and separated from nature, but really to bring nature inside.
Well, you've done that incredibly well, because I do feel that although I'm standing within your lovely cabin, I'm also standing outside.
So on one side, we actually have a whole series of screens. They can be fully opened, they can be insect screen, and then we actually have fiberglass, which can protect you from the wind.
One of the things that takes the eye immediately is this long, long skylight. What's it made from?
So it's actually made of plexiglass. It's a double layer of plexiglass. And we didn't want to spend a lot of money. So we actually looked at a greenhouse glazing, which is an off-the-shelf product that they use for industrial greenhouses. So we only have one bay, whereas a greenhouse might have many, many bays. And it's actually fiberglass because we were concerned if trees fell in the winter. So it's actually very resilient. It's made of a double channel. And then the whole thing cranks open to provide both cross ventilation and also natural light right in the middle. So really everything we want does more than one thing, and it actually benefits us in more than one way.
So during construction, you would obviously bring every single component right here to the island. What would you do about construction waste? How do you minimize that?
So one of the things that we're very concerned about is our ecological footprint and trying to minimize that wherever possible. So our definition of prefabrication isn't just rolling up with a flatbed and a kind of container and assembling them. All of the kind of elements for the floor, the walls, and the roof are actually what are called SIPS panels, structurally insulated panels. They were built in a millwork shop over the winter, January, February, March, and they were 4x8 sheets that were insulated, had finishes on them, and then shipped up by a barge from the marina to the island, and then carried to the actual site by 2 people. So in doing so, we kept our material waste to a minimum. On this side, we have a long horizontal window, but at both ends, we actually have wooden panels that open up.
Right.
And so depending, again, on the kind of breezes and the day, we get great cross ventilation all the way through. And then if you're sitting at the bench, it's actually at perfect bench height. You're actually perfectly framed to view the forest.
Yeah, it's amazing. Come and sit here.
What I'm also loving about this is I imagine this is wide enough to be used as a bed. So extra guest seating, so bang for your buck, double bubble, an opportunity for something to serve a secondary purpose.
Exactly.
The arrangement of every layer of this home is really exciting, and it's a really lovely residence. So, Bridget and Howard's wooden tent, just incredible. This would not have been an easy project to build.
I'm totally gobsmacked. Honestly, I'm taken by surprise by this property. It's industrial, it's beautiful, it has an appreciation of nature. And I think prefab is too small a description. Totally fab is how I would term it. So 3 examples of architects designing and building water access properties for themselves, which is a huge commitment.
You're taking on potentially a whole load of extra expenses, so you have to really plan every last detail from the first moment of conception to make sure that your plan comes together without killing your budget. So, starting off with the hidden cabin, home of architect Ian MacDonald, who set out to make his home almost invisible as viewed from the water. For him, his build was all about merging with nature and retaining a huge degree of privacy.
1,400 square feet used beautifully. House number 2 is the monument cabin.
Minimal impact on the environment was really important for Charles and Robin, so they set out to be off the grid wherever possible. Solar panels, peat moss toilets, those things, while they mightn't sound enormous, give you a really big return in terms of not impacting the environment.
And finally, the Island Camp home.
Now, Bridget told us that their plan for this property was that it should feel like an indoor tent. And I understand what she means.
People talk about bringing the outdoors in, but do they really talk about just interacting with the outdoors? By having 3 separate structures that aren't joined, it means that the ground between them is as important as the structures that are placed on them.
So, in a nutshell, 3 very different water access cabins. However, they all share one fabulous thing in common. They're all great escapes.